Outside, a black SUV rolled into her driveway, tires grinding gravel like a low growl. Eleanor's sharp eyes caught the crooked HOA enforcement decal on the door. No HOA governed her 1962-built home, a fact every neighbor knew. Yet 3 men in cheap tactical vests stepped out, their mirrored sunglasses glinting with false authority. No badges, no names, just swagger. Eleanor's pulse stayed even. She'd survived the 1980s oil bust, buried her son after Desert Storm, and rebuilt after a tornado tore through in 2019. This wasn't her first storm. The men didn't knock. They pounded, the lead man's fist rattling the oak door. HOA violation. Open up or we're coming in. He bellowed, voice dripping with rehearsed menace. She slid the Colt from its drawer, its weight familiar, cold steel warming in her palm. Her father's words echoed. Only draw it when you mean it. Eleanor meant it. She moved to the hallway, steps silent, her slight frame shadowed by the doorframe. The men's silhouettes loomed through the frosted glass, one testing the knob. Eleanor didn't flinch. She'd faced worse than bullies in costumes. The Colt clicked as she chambered around, her breath steady. They thought she was easy prey. They were about to learn. This grandma wasn't backing down. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. She'd seen this kind of bravado before. Men who mistook her quiet life for weakness. Her home, built with her husband's sweat in '62, was no HOA's domain. It held memories. Her son's first steps, her daughter's laughter, the flag from her husband's casket. These men weren't just trespassing. They were trampling her past. Outside, the second man, wiry and twitchy, circled to the side window, gloved fingers prying at the latch. The third, shorter, stayed by the SUV, radio crackling with static, his smirk fading as the door resisted. They weren't officials. Eleanor knew the scams, fake uniforms targeting seniors, stealing heirlooms, banking on fear. Not here. Not today. Her grip tightened, the Colt's weight a reminder of her father's courage at Iwo Jima, her husband's lessons under Texas stars. She stepped closer to the door, breath even, heart calm. You have no right here, she called, voice clear, cutting through the morning air. The pounding paused, then resumed, harder. A splintering crack echoed as the doorframe buckled. Eleanor raised the Colt, aiming low. She didn't want blood, but she'd draw it if they crossed her threshold. The window rattled behind her. The wiry man was forcing it open. Time was shrinking. She braced herself, ready for the fight she never asked for but wouldn't lose. Eleanor's voice was steel. One more step, and you'll regret it. No tremor, no doubt. The Colt, her father's Iwo Jima companion, felt alive in her hands, its history pulsing through her veins. She'd buried too much, her husband, her son, to let thieves steal her home soul. The wiry man breached the side window, boots crunching glass as he climbed in. She's bluffing, he called, voice high with bravado. But Eleanor's stance, rooted like the oak outside, said otherwise. The third man lingered by the SUV, radio spitting garbled orders, his confidence cracking. Buzzcut lunged forward, betting on her hesitation. Eleanor didn't hesitate. The Colt roared, a deafening crack splitting the morning. The bullet grazed his thigh, blood blooming on his cargo pants. He crumpled, gasping, shock replacing his sneer. She shot me, he howled, clutching his leg. The wiry man froze, hands up, eyes darting to the window he'd entered. We're done, he stammered, stumbling back. The third bolted for the SUV, keys jangling. But Eleanor held her ground, Colt steady, her gaze fierce. This wasn't just her house. It was her husband's labor, her son's memory, her father's legacy. Outside, a neighbor's truck roared to life. Help was coming. Eleanor's lips tightened. These men picked the wrong grandma, the wrong street, the wrong fight. Eleanor stood resolute, the 1945 Colt M1911 steady in her grip, its weight anchoring her. Her father's voice from Iwo Jima days whispered, "Hold the line." She did. Her home, built board by board with her husband in '62, wasn't just walls. It was her son's laughter, her daughter's drawings, a life unyielding to storms or thieves. A diesel engine growled nearby. Across the street, Javier Ruiz, a retired army mechanic, had seen it all unfold. His security camera caught the SUV's arrival, the fake vests, the doors collapse. The gunshot through his open window wasn't just sound, it was a call. Javier grabbed his hunting rifle, dialed 911, and stepped onto his lawn, voice booming. Down! Now! The third man froze, keys dropping. The wiry one tripped, sprawling in the dirt, hands raised. Javier's rifle glinted in the Texas sun, his stance calm but unyielding. Wrong house, amigos, he said, eyes locked on them. This street don't play. Eleanor lowered the Colt slightly, her breath even, watching through the shattered door. She hadn't needed to fire again, Javier's presence was enough. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but growing. The intruder's plan, built on lies and fake authority, was unraveling. They'd underestimated Eleanor, her neighbors, this quiet street where history and grit ran deep. The fight wasn't over, but the tide had turned. Eleanor lowered her 1945 Colt M1911, its steel cool in her hands, her pulse steady. She defended her home, her husband's labor, her son's memory, her father's legacy. No HOA ruled here, and these men weren't enforcers. They were thieves, cloaked in fake vests, banking on her fear. She hadn't given them any. Javier's voice cut through the chaos. Stay put, he ordered, his army-honed calm holding the intruders like chains. Neighbors peeked from porches, phones out, recording. The wiry man, voice cracking, stammered. We were just following orders. Some HOA guy said this place was empty, full of antiques. Eleanor's eyes sharpened. Orders? Her home, built in '62, was no abandoned relic. It held her grandson's medals, her daughter's quilts, the Colt from Iwo Jima. This wasn't random, it was targeted. The police screeched to a halt, officers spilling out, cuffs ready. The lead intruder, still bleeding, muttered about a list of old folks' homes, easy marks for their scam. Eleanor stepped onto her porch, Colt unloaded now, its weight a quiet anchor. Javier nodded to her, respect in his gaze. The street buzzed with whispers, eyes on her. This wasn't just her fight anymore. It was Willow Creek's. Someone had sent these men, and Eleanor's stand was only the beginning. Sheriff's deputies combed the scene, bagging the intruders' fake vests and radio. Javier Ruiz, rifle stowed, gave his statement, his camera footage already with the police. Neighbors gathered, their whispers turning to outrage. Eleanor's stand wasn't just hers. It was theirs. Within hours, investigators traced the scam. A local HOA board member, hidden behind a clean suit, had fed addresses of elderly residents to hired thugs. Homes like Eleanor's, rich with heirlooms, were marked as abandoned for plunder. The news hit Willow Creek like a spark on dry grass. Stolen metals, jewelry, and guns had surfaced in online markets. Profits funneled through shell accounts. The board member, now in custody, had preyed on trust, using HOA authority as a mask. Eleanor's shot had cracked the scheme wide open. She sat quietly, sipping tea, the Colt's weight still in her mind. Her father's courage, her husband's lessons, her son's sacrifice. They'd guided her hand. Reporters knocked, but she waved them off. This wasn't about fame, it was about right. The DA called, her case would go to trial, self-defense versus reckless endangerment. Eleanor nodded, unafraid. Her home, her memories, were worth defending as dusk settled. Neighbors dropped by with casseroles, their eyes full of pride. Eleanor's fight had lit a fire. The Colt, soon to be evidence, wasn't just steel. It was her line in the sand. The prosecutor painted her as reckless, a vigilante endangering lives. Eleanor didn't flinch. I protected my home, she said, voice steady, each word a stone. That Colt carried my father through war, stood by my husband in Korea, mourned my son after Desert Storm. When those men broke my door, they didn't just threaten me. They threatened everything we built. The room stilled. Jurors leaned forward, one wiping her eyes. The Colt wasn't just evidence. It was Eleanor's legacy, forged in sacrifice. She recounted the fake HOA vests, the splintered door, the fear she refused to feel. "I fired to stop, not to kill," she said. "My home is my line." The defense attorney barely needed to speak. The intruder's confessions, Javier's footage, and the HOA board member's arrest, charged with fraud and conspiracy, laid the truth bare. The Colt, once a weapon, now stood as a symbol of defiance against greed cloaked in authority. A juror nodded. Another clasped her hands. The judge's gaze softened, resting on Eleanor, then the Colt. No theatrics, no pleas, just truth. As she stepped down, her cane's tap echoed like a gavel. The gallery murmured, not in doubt, but awe. Eleanor paused by the glass case, her reflection merging with the Colt's. She'd defended more than a house. She'd defended a life. The verdict loomed, but her stand was already won. "Not guilty," the foreman said. "Unanimous." The gallery exhaled, a ripple of relief. Eleanor nodded once, not in triumph but acknowledgement. She defended her home, her memories, and won. Reporters scribbled furiously, but she ignored them, her gaze on the Colt. Her father's courage, her family's anchor. Outside, Willow Creek buzzed. The trial had peeled back the HOA scam's ugly truth. A board member, now indicted, had targeted seniors, selling their heirlooms through black markets. Arrests followed, 2 accomplices caught fleeing state lines, charged with conspiracy. Stolen goods, including a World War II medal, were traced back to Eleanor Street. Her shot had broken the chain. The city offered compensation, but Eleanor refused. "Use it for others," she said, proposing a senior safety network, cameras, check-ins, a hotline. The council approved it in days, naming it the Voss program. Neighbors rallied, installing alarms, sharing her story. Eleanor's stand had sparked a shield for the vulnerable. She left the courthouse, cane steady, head high. Crowds parted, some clapping softly, others whispering her name. A young girl pressed a daisy into her hand. Eleanor smiled, her eyes soft but unyielding. The Colt, soon to be returned, wasn't just steel. It was her voice, her fight. News vans lined the street, but she walked past, back to her bungalow. The scam had crumbled, justice had landed, and Eleanor May Voss had redefined courage, one steady step at a time. The street hummed with new life. Neighbors waved, their homes now fitted with Voss program cameras, a network born from Eleanor's fight. The HOA scam's collapse had shaken Willow Creek, but it forged unity. The indicted board member faced trial, his network of thieves dismantled, stolen heirlooms slowly returned. Eleanor's shot had done more than stop intruders. It had rebuilt trust. Kids biked past, one shouting, "Hi, Mrs. Voss." She raised a hand, her smile gentle but firm. Reporters had faded, but her story lingered, shared online, inspiring strangers. She didn't seek fame, her home, her memories were enough. The Colt, once hidden, now stood proud, a plaque beneath it reading, "Carried in war, guarded my peace." Javier Ruiz stopped by, his truck idling. "You changed this place, Eleanor," he said, tipping his hat. She shrugged. "Just held my ground." But her ground had shifted the town. Seniors called her, sharing stories of new locks, new courage. The hotline buzzed, volunteers answering day and night. The breeze stirred, rustling her son's old wind chimes. Eleanor sipped her tea, eyes on the Colt. It wasn't just steel. It was her father's grit, her husband's lessons, her son's sacrifice. She hadn't asked to fight, but when they came, she stood. Willow Creek wouldn't forget, and neither would she. Peace, hard won, settled around her, as steady as her heartbeat. Willow Creek was different now. The Voss program's cameras blinked on every corner. Seniors slept soundly, and neighbors checked in daily. The HOA scam's mastermind, convicted, faced years behind bars. His stolen goods returned to tearful owners. Eleanor's stand, one shot, one steady hand, had toppled a predator and built a shield for the vulnerable. A young couple paused at her gate, offering a pie. "You're a hero, Mrs. Voss," the woman said. Eleanor chuckled softly. Just a grandma with a gun. But her fight had rippled far, shared across platforms, sparking calls for justice nationwide. She didn't watch the videos. Her home, her memories, were her reward. The Colt, once a soldier's tool, now told her story. Her father's courage, her husband's love, her son's sacrifice. It wasn't about violence, it was about holding fast. As stars emerged, Javier's truck rumbled by, his wave a silent salute. Kids laughed down the street, safe because she'd stood. Eleanor touched the glass case, her fingers tracing the Colt's outline. She hadn't sought this fight, but when fake HOA cops broke her door, she answered with steel and heart. Courage, she knew, didn't shout. It stood, quiet, unyielding. Willow Creek would carry her lesson. Strength lives in steady hands, old homes, and loaded legacies. Eleanor sipped her tea at peace. Her line held, and that was enough.